In today's biased news, 100 million children are at risk of climate displacement, the Biden admin accelerates the construction of the border wall, and a breakthrough in the fight against malaria. A United Nations report has revealed that between 2016 and 2021, extreme weather events related to the climate crisis, such as floods, droughts, storms, and wildfires, resulted in the displacement of over 43 million children. The report, released by UNICEF, warns that if the current pace of climate change continues, more than 100 million children and young people could be displaced due to weather disasters alone in the next 3 decades. The report highlights the growing impact of climate change on children, emphasizing that this number is expected to rise significantly as climate fallout intensifies. The majority of displacements, 95%, were caused by floods and storms, with over 1.3 million children displaced by droughts, and nearly 810,000 due to forest fires, primarily in Canada, occupied Palestine, and the United States. China and the Philippines were among the countries where the most children were internally displaced. Children in small island nations like Dominica and Vanuatu were most affected by storms, while those in Somalia and South Sudan were most affected by floods. The report also underlines the importance of addressing this issue promptly, as children affected by climate-driven displacement face severe disruption to their lives, including concerns about returning home, resuming education, and the emotional impact of such events. Stronger efforts to prepare communities, protect at-risk children, and support those already displaced by climate change are needed to safeguard those most vulnerable in our societies. While reformative efforts at alleviating the suffering of hundreds of millions of climate refugees are better than nothing, they represent only the treatment of symptoms, and do not address the root cause: the profit-driven capitalist model which puts our climate, our homes, and our children as secondary at best to the almighty dollar. The Biden administration has announced the decision to resume deporting Venezuelan migrants and continue the construction of the southern border wall, a policy initiated by former President Donald Trump. This move comes 2 weeks after President Biden extended temporary legal status to more than 470,000 Venezuelans living in the United States, citing unsafe conditions in their home country as the reason for their stay. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has been transporting migrants from the southern border to cities like New York, Washington, and Chicago, sparking complaints from Democratic officials in those cities, as well as concerns over the legality of such actions, clearly intended to cause political strife without regard for the well-being of the people being used as pawns. Biden had initially pledged not to allocate taxpayer dollars for border wall construction upon taking office in January 2021. However, the administration clarified that this recent action aligns with a prior allocation of funds during the Trump administration, which must now be used according to the law. This is obviously a cop-out, and that's not the worst of it. The new accelerated timeline for border wall construction has prompted the waiving of 26 laws for the protection of endangered species, clean water, indigenous graves, and more. Immigration continues to be one of the most divisive and significant issues in American politics, demonstrating the country's general political illiteracy and historically established proclivity towards using bigotry as an answer to solvable, systemic, economic ills. Russian President Vladimir Putin has suggested that the plane crash that killed Wagner mercenary boss Yevgeny Prigozhin may have resulted from intoxicated fighters accidentally detonating hand grenades on board. Putin stated that there was no external influence on the crash of the Embraer Legacy 600 jet, which occurred while flying between Moscow and St. Petersburg in August. Fragments of hand grenades were reportedly found in the bodies of the crash victims. Putin also mentioned that 5 kilograms of cocaine were discovered among Prigozhin's possessions during a police raid on the Wagner Group's headquarters in St. Petersburg. He pointedly remarked that he regretted that tests for alcohol and drugs were not conducted on the victims. The crash had raised speculation of foul play, coming shortly after Prigozhin's insurrection against Russia's leadership. Putin described Prigozhin as a complex figure who made mistakes and achieved desired results. In today's lightning round, US warplanes shot down a Turkish drone in Syria, citing it as a threat to American forces. Despite multiple calls to Ankara's military, the drone returned to the ROZ and approached US forces. The incident may escalate tensions between the NATO allies. President Putin has asserted that Ukraine relies on Western aid and wouldn't survive a week without it. This comes amid concerns about potential disruptions in US support for Ukraine due to political turmoil in Washington. During an EU summit in Grenada, Poland criticized Berlin and Brussels for imposing a migration plan on the EU, while Hungary accused the bloc of pushing through a deal. Migration remains a tense issue in the Western countries which have overwhelmingly caused it. And finally, the right-wing prime ministers of Italy and Britain, in a joint op-ed, expressed their intention to lead the fight against illegal immigration in Europe. They highlighted their shared perspectives and goals, emphasizing their close friendship and common views on issues like Ukraine and militarism. And in positive news for the day, the World Health Organization has approved a malaria vaccine developed by the University of Oxford, marking a significant advance in combating one of the leading causes of child mortality. The vaccine, known as R21, is highly effective and can be produced at a lower cost on a large scale compared to the previously approved vaccine RTSS. While this development is a crucial step in preventing malaria-related deaths, experts caution that it will still take some time to completely eliminate the disease. Regardless, this is a tremendously positive development and will have a huge impact on malaria-stricken countries. That's all for today. We'll be back on Monday with more news. If you'd like to see longer episodes with more in-depth analysis, consider becoming a patron so we can grow and expand.